On February 17th, 2026, Mark Carney held a news conference announcing Canada's new defence industrial strategy.
Canada's new government was elected with a clear mandate to make Canada stronger, more resilient, and more independent.
He markets it as building Canada strong. Canadians know and understand that the biggest threat is the United States of America. The world order is rapidly changing. A new strategy is a good thing.
We know that the world has changed and that Canada must change with it.
The details of this industrial strategy are very important. Let's go over what he actually announced in here. The dollar amounts that we're talking about here, $80 billion, $150 billion, it's a shitload of money.
Total over the next decade, Canada will invest $180 billion directly in defense procurement, $290 billion in defense and security-related infrastructure.
Carney's plan is quadrupling Canada's military expenditure up to 5% of GDP, which is the highest expenditure on military since World War II. With that amount of money, Canada could end hunger, homelessness, and have much more left over to build productive things like hospitals and infrastructure.
It's a bold plan to scale Canadian defense companies and to put hundreds of billions of dollars into strategic sectors of our economy.
Carney throws around buzzwords like sovereignty,
sovereign capabilities to protect Canada's sovereignty. This strategy is about protecting Canada's sovereignty,
security, prosperity,
security partnerships with allies, security, our national security, and our economic security. Security and prosperity aren't competing priorities.
Mark Carney uses the term like-minded allies. You should take this to mean NATO, including America and Israel, the real 51st state.
We will partner with like-minded allies. Those like-minded partners in NATO.
At the end of the day, Mark Carney will side with the American empire as like-minded allies. He hasn't reassessed the allies part, which I think is what Canadians wanted.
We know that the world has changed and that Canada must change with it.
So Carney is marketing his military-industrial strategy by blurring it with like-minded allies, which includes the United States and Israel.
I would like to thank CIJA, the Israeli and Swedish embassies.
To Mark Carney, it doesn't matter that like-minded allies includes the fascist Donald Trump. He doesn't care. He hasn't changed his opinion on that.
We're now on track to meet our 2% NATO target by this spring, a full decade ahead of the previous schedule. We've signed a series of new defense and security partnerships with allies who share our interests, who share our values, and our history.
Canadian military is a NATO-style military through and through. Canada's military leaders, politicians have convinced themselves that the country must be a vassal state to the U.S. empire and to support their empire.
And to be clear, this strategic autonomy doesn't mean isolation. It means being strong enough to be a partner of choice rather than a dependent.
He wants to be a partner of choice. This is CEO speak for we want to militarize, to be able to say to the US, hey look, we have a bigger military. Can you stop being mean to us? We're doing exactly what you want. Please stop being mean to us.
We've signed a series of new defense and security partnerships with allies who share our interests, who share our values, and our history. And that includes the landmark SAFE agreement with the European Union last week.
All Mark Carney is saying is he wants to shift away the capital spending, which is currently 70% going to the US. He wants to bring that ratio down a little bit to like 30% or whatever.
3/4 of Canada's defense capital spending goes to the United States, and we should no longer allow this. Will this new strategy reduce the share of our defense capital spending that goes to the US?
Let me start by acknowledging that there are many strengths to this partnership that we have with the United States, but it is a dependency, and it's a dependency we want to change in a positive way by building up our defense capacities here and our other partnerships abroad. To get to the point of your question, what this strategy looks to do over the next 10 years is to move the domestic procurement to 70% of the overall procurement in defense. So it's from around a third to 70%.
At the end of the day, it's just shifting that percentage from like the USA, but you're still in the same alliance. He still wants to be in the Golden Dome. Crazy. So he's throwing around shitloads of money, Canadians' resources, and what's he doing with it? Well,
the DIA will streamline and speed procurement. It'll cut red tape and it'll expand domestic production. It has three fundamental objectives. First, to protect Canada's sovereignty, particularly in the Arctic.
In this announcement, the focus of the spending is particularly in the Arctic. When he says defending our country, he means defending the Arctic. Defending Canada includes the Arctic, but it's under no immediate threat of invasion and occupation. Maybe from like the polar bears, if they started to organize and militarize. Until the bears start organizing, I feel like it's under control up there. Militarizing the North won't resolve Canada's vulnerabilities. If there's any border to militarize against, it's with the fascist dying American Empire, which Canada has the longest undefended border in the history of the world, who have the most powerful military in the history of the world, under the control of American fascism.
Secondly, the DIA will work to build Canadian prosperity. And thirdly, we'll work to strengthen Canada's strategic autonomy, which means our ability to act independently in a more dangerous world. We've relied too heavily on our geography and others to protect us. And this has created vulnerabilities that we can no longer afford and dependencies that we can no longer sustain.
So when Carney talks about wanting to patch up vulnerabilities in Canada, he's talking about Russia, I guess, invading the North, which is such a stupid notion.
Securing supply chains and finally working with domestic partners, including in Canada's north.
Just try and picture an invasion and occupation of the Canadian Arctic. It's a fool's errand, and to pretend like Russia is imminently about to go over the North Pole and invade and occupy northern Canada is stupid. Speaking of the North, that brings me to the Golden Dome. So Mark Carney avoids this topic with like an 11-foot pole. He just doesn't want to talk about it. You'll understand why.
Is the Golden Dome part of today's strategy? Are you still committed to invest money in the Golden Dome? Do you want it to be extended over Greenland or not? What's the status of the current talks for this?
First point, there are many areas where we cooperate closely with the Americans for our defense. One of the most fundamental is in NORAD, in Northern Defense. The evolution of NORAD and Northern Defense in a world of hypersonic missiles, in a world where you have literally seconds to react, a world where attacks from space is not science fiction, but potential near-term reality, certainly one we need to develop defenses against. We are taking our own steps, but we are also exploring the next phase of that defense with the United States, and that would include what's called, that could include what's called the Golden Dome. Those talks, they're going well. It's under development, and if it's in the right interests of Canada, and I think there are certainly many scenarios where it will be in the right interests of Canada, we will be a willing participant. Does it include Greenland? I mean, it's a technical issue. To be honest, I haven't focused on that aspect of it.
And here you see the clear double standard of what's going on. Mark Carney says Canada will be a willing participant in the Golden Dome.
We will be a willing participant.
That's our Prime Minister's opinion. Golden Dome is Trump's vanity defense project, obviously referring to Israel's Iron Dome, and building it in Canada just puts a target on Canada's back. And this is what Mark Carney wants to do. He wants to further Americanize and Israelize Canada. Being a willing participant in the Golden Dome is stupid. It would mean American military installations that Canada does not have autonomous control over to be placed all across the country. That's called an occupation by a fascist empire. And Mark Carney says he will make Canada a willing participant.
There are many areas where we cooperate closely with the Americans for our defense.
The craziest part is Canada's been here before. The US had a plan to set up a similar missile defense system during the Cold War under much more nuclearly threatening times. And you know what Canada said at the time? Fuck no. No, don't do it. What is the benefit of allowing Americans to come in, build and operate military installations across the country that Canada cannot control? There's no benefit to it. And they also concluded at the time, it just puts a target on your back. Wow, the same things are being repeated now, and we're not even under threat of total nuclear annihilation. But this time Mark Carney says yes. He says yes because he's a spineless little capitalist pig. Canada joining the Golden Dome is akin to putting a kick me sticker on your own back, attaching the defense of Canada to the defense of the US, who are the world's greatest evil. And that's exactly why he doesn't bring up this ever. He knows it's gross and unpopular idea. He doesn't even call it the Golden Dome. He typically refers to it as hypersonic missile defense.
There are certain areas where we will want to be integrated and continue to fully cooperate with the United States. I would suggest some others have a different view, but hypersonic missile defense is one of those areas.
That's like inviting in your neighbor who's got a weapon and says, I'm gonna hurt you with it, and inviting him in and giving him like a little base to set up with, while it's in the middle of flailing about and its collapsing empire. It's a stupid idea. Attaching Canada to America's military just means Canada's going down with the ship alongside the US. Mark Carney is making Canada a willing participant to the American empire. He points to Canada's vulnerabilities, right? The solution to Canada's vulnerabilities? Austerity, obviously. Austerity is the Canadian government's policy.
None of these goals will come easily. All will require ambition, collaboration, and, on occasion, sacrifice.
At least he's honest about that. The cost is so extreme that Mark Carney says Canadians must sacrifice more in the face of the many crises facing the country. But don't worry, he says Canadians are up for it.
On occasion, sacrifice. But Canadians are up for it.
They're up for it. And reminder, Mark Carney is loaded. He's not going to sacrifice jack shit. Okay, his life's not changing through austerity. He won't lose anything. He's loaded. It sickens me that Carney demands that the youth, the vulnerable, sacrifice more. Now, some people love to shout, well, the military, we need more military to defend against the United States because America is a big threat. And I agree, America is the biggest threat to Canada by far. Not even close. The truth is, investing in Canada's NATO-style military does not defend against America. NATO is America's offensive military alliance that only serves their empire. Carney thinks the best plan for Canadian sovereignty is to enact austerity, to militarize, and support NATO dominance of Canadian foreign policy. He naively thinks that keeping quiet and further integrating with the US empire is somehow going to preserve Canadian sovereignty. I say that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. Investing into Canada's NATO-style military alliance empowers the United States. It feeds them. It enables them. Mark Carney's hoping you don't make that connection so he can keep stealing money from Canadians and just feeding it to the war machine, and I find it really gross and disturbing that he's trying to pull this trick over Canadians' eyes. Carney says security and prosperity aren't exclusive.
Security and prosperity aren't competing priorities.
Well, with Carney's plan, Canadians will see neither. Neither security nor prosperity. We won't see security because further military integration with the dying fascist empire is probably like the least secure thing one could do, and austerity is the fiscal policy that they're using to pay for that further integration and support for the American empire. So Canadians are going to get poorer. There's going to be fewer resources. Not getting prosperity either, unless you own a gun factory. If you own a gun factory, then maybe prosperity. He will do whatever it takes to keep the bag flowing, which means keeping Donald Trump happy, making sure his capital-owning class buddies keep the money flowing. Mark Carney has $10 million in assets at least. This man is fucking loaded, and he's going around saying, yeah, we're gonna invite the US military in, you're gonna be sacrificing for it, and we're gonna help America and Israel enact their vision in the Middle East, like in Iran, which America and Israel are on the precipice of war with. Again, he wants to build up military capabilities in the Middle East.
And as I speak to you today, Canadian troops are participating in NATO deterrence and defense missions across Central and Eastern Europe, as well as building capacity in the Middle East.
That's Mark Carney's defense industrial strategy. Steal from the masses by austerity, worsen material conditions for Canadians, especially vulnerable ones, and use those resources to buy pew-pew machines to shoot polar bears in the Arctic, not even to defend against the fascist American empire along the longest undefended border in the history of the planet against the strongest military power in the history of the planet. He doesn't consider the US a vulnerability. He considers the appearance of America as a vulnerability. He just wants to hide the problem. It's a marketing thing from him. He's just trying to market rampant militarization to levels we haven't seen since World War II to defend Canada. When he says that, he means the Arctic from Russia. Militaries are expensive. Now imagine how much more expensive it is when you're trying to militarize the most hostile remote environment on the planet. It's called a stupid notion. If you wanted to defend the North, you would close the infrastructure gap, resilient infrastructure, hospitals that would service communities and allow them to prosper under the difficult conditions that it is living in the Arctic. Instead, he's going to spend
$290 billion in defense and security related infrastructure.
Billions and billions and billions of dollars on an invisible enemy in the north of Canada. And this is Canada focusing on defending the north is exactly what Donald Trump wants Canada to do. So Trump is getting his way.
All we want from Denmark for national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada.
He's also getting his way on the Golden Dome. Carney is essentially cool with building Fortress America. Carney sees no problem joining Fortress America and supporting it. He is fully on board. It's because he's a capitalist pig who's looking out for the capital-owning class. It's class solidarity. While he's waging class war against the working class, it's gross. We need to wake up and be clear about what Mark Carney is doing and where he's taking the country to help America and Israel. He wants Canada to be a willing participant to U.S. Golden Dome
with the United States, and that could include what's called the Golden Dome. Many scenarios where it will be in the right interest of Canada, we will be a willing participant.
The stupidest shit I've ever heard. He wants to militarize the Arctic to defend against invisible Russians, I guess, all while continuing to further militarily integrate with the dying fascist empire. This is a plan doomed to fail. He's not Team Canada, he's Team Capital. Canadians should understand what's going on, because they're getting screwed. Mark Carney's plan does not meet the moment, doesn't provide necessary change. His plan doubles down on failed policy that is doomed to fail Canadians again. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Canada's new defense industrial strategy. I think it's evil, gross shit, stealing from the poor to give to the American military industrial complex, demanding sacrifices, yada yada. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed my content, please subscribe, and if you liked this video, press the like button. Do it. Anyways, free Palestine, Donald Trump, Mark Carney, and Israel. Take care, everyone. Until next time.